Here's what I want to do next. We're going to do NFL comps. You're so much better at this than I am. My memory just evaporates. Maybe I got hit in the head more. Maybe, I don't know.
That's fair.
But it's
I
probably
got hit in the head
fair.
quite. I mean, I had like 4 or 5. I mean, I had like some legit concussion credibility over here. I played on concrete for crying out loud back in
That's
those
good
days.
cred. That is good cred. I'm double digits, but that's no one's surprised about that.
How many of those are fastballs and how many of those are football hits, though? Let's be straight up. Did you ever get one in baseball?
No, I didn't get hit in
You
the
just
head.
don't remember.
I was hungover a lot. Why have hence I'm dry now, everyone. Made a good decision there. All right, DJ, NFL comps. Who comes to mind when you're evaluating this player? You ready?
Yes, sir.
Jeremiyah Love.
Yeah, to me, body type wise, there's not a clean one. Stylistically, I would compare him to Jahmyr Gibbs. A little different body type, but the ability to make people miss at full speed, the pass game value, and just a different gear. Like those guys can just tap into a different gear. So I'll go with Gibbs.
Do you love him as much as I love him? Because I think he's probably, if you're not, I have Mendoza as my number one player.
So
but
do
like I think Love is probably the best football player in the draft. He and Arvell Reese.
There's 2 ways of looking at it. I think if you're saying we're drafting for an NFL team, obviously the quarterback position factors in. So I have Mendoza 1. But if we were to rally the 40, I think I counted 46 people you've got working on this show, and we were to go to the park and pick teams and just go play at the park, Jeremiyah Love would be the first pick.
Of course he would.
Kiara's second, maybe third, but she's up there.
Kiara kills it on social.
I'm high on Catherine.
No, Catherine's a captain, so like she's picking. So she's the one picking Jeremiyah Love. Okay, so I love Gibbs, and I also one of the things that I thought he did a great job of this year, and I talked with another Todd McShay and I were talking about this. He got much better in pass protection this year versus the previous years. And I said in that episode, it reminded me a lot of Travion Henderson in that regard, who all of a sudden was the best pass protector in the draft. And you can see it paid off for him early in his NFL career. Okay, NFL comps, who comes to mind? We are evaluating Carnell Tate.
Yeah, Carnell Tate. I'm going to pull it up because I wrote a bunch of these down when I was doing this stuff for the baseball cards when these guys get picked. Carnell Tate. Oh, that's the wrong draft, so that's not going to help you. I've done this all weekend. I know his off the top
comp
of my head.
deal.
Yeah, I know his off the top of my head because to me I compared him to Olave a little bit. Just the vertical stuff. I know Olave's time speed's a little better. I think Tate's a little stronger. But in terms of all those Ohio State guys that have rolled through, that was the one I thought he was most similar to.
It's fluidity down the field that he has, and he's very smooth in that area. He was great in contested catches, and I think it's a trait that's hard to find, a guy that doesn't panic down the field, and he certainly didn't. Was terrific on the opposite side and of Jeremiah Smith, who I think is probably the top pick in the draft a year from now, but we'll talk about that.
At least the best player. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of next year's Jeremiyah Love in that regard. But I'm a huge fan of Carnell Tate. Overcame a ton in his life. Mom tragically was taken from him.
Tell me about, because I've just heard that this kid is so wired the right way. So I'd love to hear more about that.
So tragically, his mom was taken in a shooting right when he basically got to campus as a true freshman. And he was from Chicago. And so, he has to deal with that as a true freshman and losing his mom in a really tragic fashion. And everybody that I talked to in that building just said, this guy was rock solid from day one, used it as motivation, knew his purpose, and matured every single day and got better every single day. And used it as fuel and not as a crutch or an excuse. And this is something that I noticed when I would talk with him. And then I saw him mature over the years. And here's the other part that I really, really love about Carnell Tate. And you have to have a very unique type of guy to do this, because most really talented players that go into college football want to be the best player on their team, or at least the best player in their room.
Mhm.
And Tate knew that he was probably never going to be that, and yet still wanted to be there and compete because of the greatness of the room. Does that make sense? Like,
100%.
he wanted the lineage and the challenge of being in that room specifically, and I think it speaks to his competitive will, and one of the reasons why he's so good down the field. And again, he could have just sat there and said, Jeremiah Smith is better than me, and I'm the number 2 and this or that. But man, he was greedy for catches in a good way, in a very good way, and went out there and produced. So that would be my 2 cents on Tate.
I'm also a fan of guys who don't drop the football. I
Yeah.
was talking to somebody about a player the other day. I was talking with the GM. It was actually last night. He was going on raving about a player. And he's like, run after catch, run after catch. I'm like, yeah, you're missing the catch part of that. Doesn't matter how well you run if you don't catch it. We had a good laugh about it, anyways.
I think I know exactly who he was talking about. All right, NFL comps. Who comes to mind when you're evaluating Omar Cooper?
Yeah, Omar Cooper is he's just a mini Debo. He's not as heavy as Debo, but there's the run after catch stuff reminds me so much of Debo when he was coming out. Just once he has the ball in his hands, like there's guys that just hate to be tackled. He just does. He won't go down. And then he's able to kind of elevate, play above the rim. You saw that obviously the big one against Penn State. But he's just an athlete and just kind of he got a little dog to him. So that's who he reminded me of. Debo wasn't the most polished route runner when he was coming out. I think he's a little more advanced than that. I still think there's room for him to grow and develop there. But guys, just get the ball in his hands, and that's when the fun starts.
I think there's a misconception that everybody that was really good at Indiana was a transfer,
Mhm.
and that's not the case with Omar Cooper. Omar Cooper was an Indiana guy. He committed to Tom Allen and came in and stayed there when the JMU crew arrives with Kurt Signetti, and bought in and developed and became just an outstanding player for them in that passing game. I think his feel for space is incredible. They ran a lot of RPOs. No one threw more RPOs in last season than Fernando Mendoza, but part of that was because of guys like Cooper and Surratt on the outside. And Cooper was outstanding. I'm a huge fan of him, and certainly I'll always remember that play because I was in the booth with Gus. We both lost our minds. I think we almost lost Gus that day when
I
Omar
know
Cooper
that's
made
an
that catch
all-time
at the back of
call.
the end
It's an
zone.
all-time call.
Oh, all right. NFL comps. Who comes to mind when you're evaluating Jordyn Tyson?
Yeah, Jordyn Tyson to me reminded me coming out of college of Jerry Jeudy. Like Jerry Jeudy
Oh,
had
that's
a
a good one.
had a freeness to him and like a creativity at the line of scrimmage, and he was just so like limber and loose and fluid and smooth. That to me is what he reminded me of. I think people forget. I know Jerry Judy's had some high moments in the NFL. It hasn't been this consistently great ride, but when all those guys were in that class, remember that receiver class was stacked. He was viewed right up there, near the top of that list coming out of college. So that's who he reminds me of. And I do want to clarify one thing that's out there because people have asked me about how physical he is, how tough is he, and all those things. And I've said, look, I wish he would be stronger to the ball to finish in traffic, like combat catches. There's times where I don't think he's quite as strong there as he needs to be. And that kind of is like gets wrapped up into strength and it's competitive in terms of like fighting for the ball. But then as it works nowadays, people are like, oh, so you're saying because he tore his knee that he's not tough. And I'm like, this is not there. Two separate conversations there.
Totally,
He's had
totally separate. You can be concerned about the injury
Yes,
history.
there's been injuries every year, and it's it's the collarbone, it's the hamstrings. But that to me is the durability thing is a real thing. But the when I'm talking about the toughness and competitiveness, I'm not talking about overcoming injuries. I'm just talking about finishing on the ball in traffic. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a different listen, Jordyn Tyson's phenomenal. I love everything that you
Mhm.
just talked about. I think my biggest concern is the injury history. Like when healthy, this guy is
No
an
question.
elite player. But there is also a difference the way that he finishes catches between the hash marks versus a Makai Lemon,
Mhm.
who is just like tough as
Fearless
nails.
attacks the
Totally
ball.
feel it,
Yeah.
fearless. Doesn't matter who's around, what
Mhm.
defender, linebacker, safety, doesn't matter. He's going to attack the football, and that's a little bit of a difference. There's no doubt. Last comp, let's go tight end, Kenyan Sadiq. NFL comp, who do you think of when you see Kenyan Sadiq?
Yeah, there's two guys. So I'll go Vernon Davis being the most obvious one I think that's
Most
out
obvious,
there,
yeah.
just who's so twitchy and explosive and dynamic. I don't think you're talking about somebody who's going to be a real feel option rowdy, tight end. I think that you think about Kelsey and how he plays the game. That's not going to be him. It's going to be more about just speed and running away from guys and the strength to break tackles. Needs to be more consistent catching the ball. Had too many drops this last year, but I loved his competitiveness. And Vernon Davis, when he wanted to, he could drive guys off the field as a blocker. That's the first one. The other one people won't remember, but he does remind me when I watched Dustin Keller when he was coming out of Purdue when I was
I remember
a
Keller.
young scout. Yeah, he was same kind of compact dude who could really roll.
Let's play another game here. We're just got the game show theme. Ceiling floor. There's a couple of guys that I think are fascinating. One because of whether it's position. It could be production over potential. It could be off-field news. Anything like that. So you've got kind of this idea of where's their ceiling, where's their floor in the draft. So not their evaluation, but kind of like team number in the draft. What's the point that they wouldn't get past in the first round? Let's start with Rueben Bain. And before you start,
Yeah,
obviously it got floated out there this weekend about his 2024 horrible incident. There was a car accident. Someone lost their life. He was in the middle of that. Listen, NFL teams have known about this. DJ, you've known about
yeah.
this. Those of us around the sport have known about this for a long time. So within draft circles, this is not going to be a surprise and likely will not affect the evaluation nor the value of Rueben Bain. But having said that, it's kind of on the forefront of the public's mind. So I had to say that before I talk about Rueben Bain. What do you think is a ceiling and floor for the pass rusher for Miami?
Um, for me, I think the ceiling would be 7 with Washington. I don't think it's Tennessee. I don't think it's the Giants or Cleveland. So I think Washington would be the first team. And then I would say the floor, I can't see the Ravens passing on him at 14. A team that can't rush the quarterback and a team who values strength and edge setting. He's going to be able to do that. Plus, he could kick inside. We don't know Matabike's what his situation is with the health that he's had. So he's somebody to give you some inside pass rush as well.
And what I loved about Ruben is his effort against the run. Like this guy is not a pass rush specialist. Like he plays his
He's a
absolute
bully.
tail off on every snap. And
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved that. All right. We've already talked about downs a little bit, but we didn't get into a ceiling floor. I know we mentioned Cowboys at 12. I have him at 12. What do you think is a ceiling for him? Because let me throw this out.
Yeah.
I had a lot of conversations. So my man Steve and I do everything together. Steve Owens, and
Steve was going to be a high pick at the park. By the way, I didn't mean to leave him out.
100%. Well, he's drafting the other team. You and I are not making picks, by the way. Steve and Catherine are making.
There we
picks.
go.
Okay. So Steve brought up, and I was like, "Gosh, he's so perfect for him." He was just like, "Wouldn't John Harbaugh love Caleb Downs?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's perfect. A versatile safety for him. Probably wants him to be a little bit bigger." But you tell me from what you're hearing, what do you think is a ceiling floor for Caleb Downs?
Yeah, I don't think the Giants are going to do that, but I would still, there's enough of a possibility that I would keep it alive. So I would say that would be the ceiling for him, would be number 5. And then, I don't like, going lower on this, but man, I'll probably, I'll stick with Dallas as the floor, but I'm just telling you for the reasons I've been shocked with some safeties in the past that I've had huge grades on and had them all the way up there and watched them slip and slide. So
Sure.
I don't know where I would put that at, but that would be, I guess I would say Minnesota would be the worst case scenario, all hell broke loose spot.
There's definitely secondary need throughout the league, so it's like someone's going to take him. I would suspect. Like there's no red flags. Play is great. Character is great. Off the field is great. There's no red flags with this guy.
And like I said, I like him. He's all the way up there for me. I would say this, and I'm going to be a little bit biased on this because I've called every single game he's played in the NFL. But when you watch Derwin James every week and you see what he does at 6'3.5", 220 pounds, and how he runs, Like, I like Downs, but he is not Derwin James. Like,
No, he's not that big.
that's how I would say that. And Derwin James was the 17th pick?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just like, hey, we'll see how it goes. We
Yeah.
agree. We're singing the same song here about him as a player, but the league has done this before, so we have to wait and see where he goes.
How about the other Notre Dame running back, Jadarian Price? Because he's going to be the second running back taken. Like, this guy is really good and was the backup, to Jeremiah Love, who was outstanding and the Doak Walker Award winner and a Heisman finalist. And Marcus Freeman has been upping the talent level. This is something that I've talked a lot about when I, just get into the college-oriented stuff on my podcast about when Brian left Notre Dame, he thought that there was a ceiling, but the ceiling was actually him.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus has raised the ceiling from a talent perspective. And I think Love and Price are evidence of that. Even though they were kind of like Kelly-esque in terms of recruits, Marcus Freeman has elevated the talent level at Notre Dame. And these guys are part of that. And Jadarian Price is going to be probably the second running back taken.
Yeah. And much like your compliments to me at the start of the show, I think you could eliminate probably there and just say, he is going to be the second running back taken. And it's to me, if you don't get on that train, if you don't get on the Jadarian Price train, yeah, I'm not feeling great about you having a running back you think can start next year. I think this is a 2 starting running back draft. Now, we always will get some guys who will surprise us and be solid players, but to me, it is a weakness in this draft. So I'm looking at him. I will put the ceiling. I'll go Seattle pick 32. And then the floor, I'll go Seattle 32. How do they not take him? They don't have a starting running back.
I was just going to say, I was like, Love won't be there.
No.
And they're picking at a point in the draft where he's going to be right value-wise. Yeah. He's a starter.
Yeah, you're going to have to buy some time because Charbonnet's coming off of injury.
Correct. Charbonnet's not even fully healthy, and like, he's fantastic. Yeah. And they have to replenish that position with Walker walking out the door and going to Kansas City.
By the way, who is it that clips this stuff? Is it Kiara that's doing that?
Kiara does that.
Don't post it until it happens. If he gets picked, make us look really, really smart. Then you send this video out.
Kiara, next Thursday.
Yeah. Wait on this thing.
Wait
on that clip. Don't send that. We look really dumb when we say that and they just pass him, So
that's right.
But if they take him, send.
You keep saying we. You don't have to throw we in there. You.
No, I mean, I'm trying to bring you along, man.
I appreciate that. All right.
Probably one of the best guys to do this. That's an all-timer, man. What an introduction. What a jerk. I mean, that's what they say.
Now, by the way,
probably. I don't know.
Now that's my favorite intro I've ever done.
Well done, man. I love it.
Not even a probably. That is my favorite intro I've ever done right there. How about David Bailey?
Oh, who does he remind me of? That's a good question. Did I put a comp for David Bailey? Let me see this.
What do you think? Just ceiling floor?
Oh, sorry, I was flipping games on you.
I know. I've been
David Bailey. 2 is the ceiling, and I like the chances of him going 2, and I think 4 is the floor.
So this is what's fascinating to me, and let's stop right there because this was going to be kind of my last question, was just scuttlebutt. What are you hearing as we get closer? But I think that the first thing is this idea of Arvell Reese, David Bailey, maybe Sonny Styles. What do the Jets do at 2? Because that's really where the draft starts. You and I and everybody else probably believes Fernando Mendoza is going to the Raiders, and then it's like, okay, what are the New York Jets going to do? And who are they drafting? And there's some really good players up there. They're all defenders. Where are they going?
Yeah, first of all, there's no wrong answer. If you told me that any of those 3 guys, I think those are the 3 guys it comes down to. It's Bailey and Reese. I think that's probably the main decision. But I think Sonny Styles is such a freak show that you need to entertain it. You at least got to put him in the conversation and have it. So
By the way, he's also an incredible leader.
Yes, you put the dot on him, and not only are you getting the communication and the intelligence on the field, but you're getting all the leadership and all that stuff off the field. So, he belongs in that conversation. But I had gone early. I started off with Bailey in the process, and then I'd gone, okay, well, the Jets, they've got 3 first rounders next year. It feels like this team that they're pointing towards 27. So, the higher upside player is Reese. Like, he's got more physically in his body than Bailey does.
He's
So
more versatile. He's more of a hybrid player than Bailey is the best pure pass rusher in the draft. Arvell Reese might turn into Micah Parsons.
Yeah, there's the ceiling there is unquestionably, you can make a strong case it's higher. So I had been thinking, okay, well, they're pointing towards 27, then just take the guy with the upside. And then the more I look at it and the more I talking to folks around the league who have, connections inside that building, it felt like there was more of a Bailey, bird in the hand pick. This is a team last year, where were they at? They were 31st in sacks. Now, they brought in some guys in free agency, but nobody to the caliber of David Bailey in terms of the polish as a pass rusher. So you just want to get a sure thing. And when you have someone like Reese who can do a lot of different things, that's great. But if you just want to go hunt the quarterback right now, I think Bailey is further along, and I think is a safer player just from that standpoint. I know exactly what he does. I've seen him do it, and I'm just going to ask him to do the same thing here.
Yeah, if you're asking me who has a lower floor as a prospect, Bailey or Reese, I would say Reese.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 1-year starter, and you don't exactly know. Like, could he just be an off the ball linebacker? No, I'm not sure. Could he just be a pass rusher? No, I'm not sure. He's really good at both. Could be great.
Mm-hmm.
Could be great as a hybrid style defender, but his floor, there's a little bit more risk. Whereas the upside is obviously you get an insanely impactful defender on the field in the likes of Micah Parsons. That's my comp when I kept talking to him. That's what Matt Patricia and I would talk about, is like, this guy, he can do everything. He can rush on the edge. He can rush on the interior. By the way, not to go back and forth between Reese and Styles. Styles is one of the best blitzers from the linebacker position.
Especially the year before. No.
Oh,